What's your story? Whether you're a client or an independent financial advisor, we know you face many important decisions that can affect your and your clients' long-term financial success. Welcome to the WIN Podcast, What's Important Now with Corey Heimensen, accredited investment fiduciary and president of Heimensen Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, Corey helps you identify your goals and objectives through financial education and comprehensive planning, while inspiring you to make better behavioral decisions in your personal finance. With a twist on pop culture and current events, join us as we explore growth and protection strategies for individuals, advisors, and their businesses. Come and discover what's important to you now.
Hello and welcome to the WIN Podcast with Corey Heimensen. Corey, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
It is good to be back with you. Yeah, what's going on?
New day. Trying to bring some interesting stuff, and I don't know. See what we can come up with today.
Well, you said this was going to be an interesting show, so I'm interested to see what we're talking about. What have we got?
Yeah, the basic title, and then we always go deeper or off in another tangent. The title of today's is A Collection of Change. So a fun fact is that as a small child, my parents thought I should collect banks, I guess. So my mom worked in a bank, so now I've got all these piggy banks and coin banks and all these things. And so what do you do with them? You hide them away in one random office in your office building that nobody ever sees.
That's a good use for them.
So fun fact. So since we're talking about change, I emptied some of them. And so I'm going to dump out, a couple coins here. And I know we're not on video, but we'll try and see if this, brings some noise that's entertaining. And then we'll go through these one by one for the next hour or so, looking at dates and interesting facts. Okay.
Well, that's definitely a change from your normal podcast.
Okay. All right. Well, this might sound like raindrops or a train wreck. We'll see how this sounds, but it's a lot of coins.
Are you running some noise canceling software over there? Because I don't hear a thing.
Didn't hear anything? I am not, actually.
Oh, well, hey, kudos to Zoom for blocking out the change sound. But so you just dumped a bunch of coins out.
I dumped out coins all over my desk here, and they went on the floor. And so we're just going to describe that it was a really loud noise. And now to bring us back to reality, we are not going to talk about coins.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is if this is from when you were a kid, there's got to be a bunch of silver in there.
Well, see, now you're somewhat dating me.
Oh, yes.
I was slightly after 1965, so I don't think I have many silver coins here. They are hidden away in storage every time I've ever found those. But,
all right. Well, there you go. All right. That's good.
So let's talk about change. We're not talking coins here, and most people know me well enough to know that we never just go with the layup type answer connected to what we're talking about. But we all face change, right?
Yes.
In life, and change is basically just something that's different. Kind of puts us into an uncomfortable position maybe sometimes, but just like anything, when I want to learn more about a topic or a word, I go to this thing called the internet and I typed in a phrase. And so I typed in the phrase books about change into a website search engine that many people have probably heard of. But anyway, 5,950,000 search results come back.
Jeez, that's a lot of books to read.
I mean, that's like a long weekend, and so what I did here is I'm going to quickly run through these, just the first 15, the first 15 things that popped up from the search results, and then we'll go from there. But 11 books about change to guide you through life's seasons, 5 books to help you embrace the change, 12 reassuring books to help kids deal with change, the 30 most life-changing books that will shift your perspective and stick with you forever. That's serious, 21 life-changing books you won't be able to put down, 3 books that will change your life, 40 most life-changing books that you need, 20 life-changing books that shape your thinking, 54 books that will change your life, the 100 best change kids books, 52 books to change your life in 1 year. I'm getting there. I'm almost to the end, people. This 19 picture books about change for kids, 10 inspirational books that will change your life for good, top 10 books on change management, and lastly, the 50 best books to change your life and the way you see the world. All told, what are we looking at? 437 books have just been thrown in my lap to tell me what? That basically change is inevitable. Not a hell of a lot you can do about it except deal with it and move on. So I'm not reading any of them 437 books.
Yeah, 21 of them you can't put down for the rest of your life. That's a lot to carry around. Just, gee, Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just interesting to me, and maybe it's hitting me home or hitting me a little more personally lately because, I've seen some things just in my world, whether that's loss of a loved one or the deterioration of health of somebody, Change isn't, a lot of times, it isn't something you expect. And it maybe isn't at a convenient time.
Yeah.
But it's out there. And so, I encourage listeners, that if you're facing change and you're scared or upset about something, reach out to somebody. It helps to talk to somebody, whether that's, somebody you're close to as a friend or a companion. But it could be people like me. It could be an advisor. It could be, it could be a therapist. But somebody can help you get through your rough patch. And I'm not saying all change is rough patches. I shouldn't say that.
Well, I think that you do a great job of helping people to change in one specific area. I mean, which is, I say one specific area, but it's life. So that's not exactly specific, but just something that happened last night. I remember when I was younger, my drive, my focus was making money, building my business, working, a ton of hours, Corey, a ton of hours to set up a business. You know that. You're a business owner. And that's what I was chasing because that's what I felt my family needed at the time, so on and so forth. And just in the last 10 years, still running a business and still doing all that, I've really changed my perspective on what's important, right? So it falls right in line with this podcast. What's important now? Well, now time is more important to me. So just a brief story. Last night, I got a call from my dad. He's like, "Hey, buddy." I'm like, "What's going on, Pop?" He says, "Well, just want to let you know I'm heading to the ER. I fell down." Like, okay, you okay?
Just a casual notice. Yeah.
Very casual, just want to make sure that everything was okay. And so I just went over to the ER because I knew which hospital they're going to go to. He was trying to load some fertilizer from a cart into the back of a truck. He's 83 and the cart was a little funky sideways and he tripped on the handle of the cart. Face first down to the concrete, smacked his head and his nose. And so we're sitting in the ER last night and he's in good spirits, talking with all the nurses, of course. But it's those kind of moments where I'm like, this is why I do what I do now. This is why I enjoy having the time that I do now, where my focus is more on time. And that's the real change because I want to be able to go and help him do those things that he shouldn't be doing, like loading those things. Now he's stubborn, so he's going to do that when I'm not there. I can't be there all the time. But I've dedicated more time to be able to spend with them, my aging parents, because that's where my focus is. And I think you do a beautiful job of that. Throughout all these podcasts, you've talked a lot about that. What's important to you now? And you help people see that and achieve that. So I don't think, like you said, all change isn't negative. It's just a change.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I hope your father's on the mend and heading the right direction now.
Yeah, that's funny that you said head in the right direction.
I didn't mean that. Tough.
Yeah.
But you're right. I was in that building a business mindset for lots and lots of years. I've been doing this 24 years and you're right. There's a drive maybe that goes in the first 23 years that's different than the next 23 years. The joke in our office building is that the only person that doesn't take all of his or her applicable vacation or paid time off days is still this guy with two thumbs pointing at myself, that guy. And every year I say, I'm going to take more days off. I'm going to try and, maybe take off 10 half days. And they all look at me like, dude, you're the boss. You could take off 80 days if you wanted to, but I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
Because people that know me, they know I'm competitive. And it doesn't matter if I was setting up a lemonade stand downtown every day or doing what I do. I'm going to be the best at it.
Yeah.
Is the objective, and to do what's right for people to make them happy. But anyway, this isn't all about me. but you're right. Change in a business is important. I would even argue that, like mine, for example, once you build a certain type of business to a certain size, you could probably coast if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But then that means I never would have wrote a book.
Correct.
Which I did just to see if I could challenge myself and if it would turn out productive. And, now we've sold a lot of them, really. And honestly, we give away far more than we ever sell because I just want people to hold it and have it. And I love when we have to reorder more boxes to distribute. That's great. And then it goes to the podcast. It's like, hey, yeah, the book was, checked off the list. And so let's see if we can do a podcast. And here we are. We're on show number 40.
Yeah.
And I remember early in this path, you told me what the average number of podcasts that people complete. Do you remember that conversation? Because I think I asked how many in our industry, what's the average longevity? I think it was the way to say that.
It used to be, I think when we first spoke about it, I think it was 8, right? Well, the number's lowered. Now it's like 3. People do 3 podcasts and then they just like, I quit.
That's amazing. It's like going to the gym 3 times.
Yeah. Expecting results.
Stop eating red meat for 3 days. So it doesn't matter what you do for a living or, what you're into. I mean, embrace change, tackle change and appreciate it because we're all on the same path to, not seeing sunrises, maybe, or you know what I mean? I don't know how to phrase all that, but I mean, we're all on a defined path essentially. And you're right. When you talk about the show name, what's important now? Man, you can't plan for 40 years from today unless you take care of business today and tomorrow and the day after that. So that's the mindset I'm really trying to create with this podcast, not just in my town, but in the country, in the world. Whoever's listening to this, I mean, let's change the way or the rhetoric of this stuff and make people think about financial planning or planning in life in general in a different than more of an immediate thinking type way. Yeah.
And I think to me, just talking with you and learning from you for these last 40 shows, one of the things that I've noticed is that you are all constantly trying to not keep up with change, but kind of look toward the future of what changes could be made in your industry, within folks' retirements, within their goals, because as well as I do that people are living longer. And as technology improves, I mean, again, 20 years ago, you weren't recording, your voice in educational material for posterity like you are with this podcast and putting it out there for free for everybody. This is new. This is a newer technology, if you will. And you've embraced it and adopted it. And as well as I do that health care is going to improve. Technology is going to improve our lives. And that means people are going to live longer. So you have to plan now. You have to change your mindset and your clients' mindsets to, hey, you're not going to live as long as your grandfather did. You're going to live longer than that, most likely, because technology is going to keep you alive. And with that technology, there's going to be an expense. And so therefore, how do we plan for that? I mean, you have a job that is ever changing, and it's something that you constantly keep up with.
Well, and I would even argue if you're going to deal with any kind of professional person as a consumer or a client, don't you want cutting edge technology, cutting edge concepts out of that individual or that individual's team? Because, if you walk into a lawyer's office and they have blue shag carpet, and ceiling tiles that are stained because nobody's spent a damn nickel in that place in 50 years, you're at the wrong attorney office.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you want to team up with people that are willing to spend money, be aggressive, try to think about different ways of accomplishing something. And again, we don't want everybody in the country to deal with our office. There's plenty of good advisors out there. Go find one that meets your needs and fits into your situation. And if you can't find that person, you know damn well where we are.
Yep.
Right? But I laugh. It's just fun. Improving things and trying to improve people's lives is fun. And it should be. And I think back, just a couple episodes ago, we talked about, there was a story about bricklayers, right? That you walk up to 3 bricklayers and you're like, what are you doing? And one of them's, half-hearting it.
Mm-hmm.
Phrase, that's a person that has a job, and maybe the next one, is going a little bit beyond, and so they have a career. And then that third one, the third one's passionate about showing up to work and delivering an end product that's meaningful. That's a person with a calling.
Yeah.
And so I like to think I have a calling, but I know darn well after visiting with you all the hours we've visited that I think you too, my friend, have a calling.
I do that. That's a great transition. But before we make that transition, Corey, I want to ask you a question about working with your clients. What do you think is the hardest change that the listener is going to face when they approach retirement, when they approach that time when they are entrusting themselves to everything they've worked so hard for the first 40 years of their life?
It is scary, and I can see the look in people's eyes, when they start having the conversation of, I think I'm ready to retire, but do I have enough? That is the question that is every time. Do I have enough money? I don't want to go back to work, Corey. And I'll say to them, if we do this right, which we're expecting to, you don't have to go back to work unless you want to go back to work. But it's communication. It's an evolving conversation, because another part that's tough for people is if, let's say you have a spouse and you've been going to work for 40 years, and so you see your spouse how many hours a day?
Mm-hmm.
And so suddenly now you have maybe a couple and you're together all day long. And I see that, and people joke about it, but it's real. It's different.
Yeah.
Different expectations around the house if you're there with somebody else. Different expectations if you're not going to work and not feeling productive about talking to other people, delivering an item or a service. It's tough. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's a good takeaway. So in all my years, we have never, and I know the compliance people don't want me to make guarantees, to this point, we have never screwed up somebody's financial retirement so badly that they had to go back to work and start over. We're batting 1,000, and that's not because we're super awesome. It's because we know what can go wrong, and we solve for that before it ever comes into play.
Yeah. The
second scariest part is health. And I think people maybe take good health for granted until suddenly you're hit alongside the head, but we already had a head story today, so I apologize. Right. Take my voice down into a somber tone.
No, my dad's still making fun of it. He's laughing, and one of the nurses said, "Oh, you're handling yourself really well. You're a real trooper." And I said, "Don't give him a big head." Of course, he laughed. He loved that. He likes that kind of humor. So no, you're in good company.
And I think that healthcare story is not necessarily just, oh my gosh, somebody passed away. It's not a death. The one that's a tougher grind is a slower deterioration, or
Yep.
Man, that's tough. You see it all the time, and honestly, there's a lot of people dealing with it out there that we probably don't even know of.
Yeah.
But they're in their homes, and one person's taking care of another, and that's not in the public eye. Maybe they don't get out to church or to the grocery store like a lot of other people. And I don't want anybody to forget about those people and those caregivers out there because they're, man, super important and doing a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I love, is that you have the passion to help people work through those issues, right? I mean, it's not just, like you said, it's not just somebody passing away and then you're dealing with a will and inheritance and blah, blah, blah. It's everything that happens before then. You've talked about long-term care on this podcast. You've talked about, whether people need it or not. Some people do, some people don't. You've talked about insurance. You've talked about all these different things in a protection format, and also what you can do to make sure that you are as healthy as possible. You've talked about that. I mean, you cover, I don't want to say everything because, again, compliance might slap me, but you cover so many pieces of somebody's life and their livelihood to get them to that point where, you're going to walk through their situation with them. It's not like hey, here you go, have a great 40-year retirement or 35-year retirement. See you on the other side. You're working with these people every day.
Yeah. And I think the thing that surprises a lot of people is I think they assume they're going to need a lot more money in retirement than they have. And what that means is generally the people that are good at accumulating and saving and making good decisions those first 40 years of working have probably got to a point where it's going to be a lot easier to plan from that day forward. And they already know that they're savers and not spenders. People don't flip the switch. We've talked about that. Barring something catastrophic, most people, if they're good at saving and, don't spend everything they take in every month for the first 40 years of working, they're probably not going to change teams and be different on the backside of that. And jumping around earlier, you mentioned it in this quote always comes back to me. It's Wayne Gretzky, hockey player. They always wondered why he was so good. And he says, well, I skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it's at. And I always think of that. I'm not a huge hockey guy, but how cool of a quote is that? I mean,
yeah,
that's business. That's life. Sports. It can be any of those things. You got to be forward looking and forward thinking if you really want good results.
Yeah.
By all means, if you're a person that doesn't think that way, then team up with people like our office or somebody that thinks that way. Stuff isn't that hard. I mean, history is not new. We've said that before too.
No, absolutely. Well, my friend, it has been a journey, and it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you more than I know that you kind of alluded to this earlier, but there is a change coming up, and as much as I've enjoyed our time together, I'm passionate about helping people, and I hope that I've helped you in the growth of this podcast and get your message out there, because I think your message is vitally important. This isn't a local podcast. This is a nationwide podcast. And people are learning from you every time you get on this show. But as well as I do that a lot of companies are having a hard time finding folks, finding and hiring people. And my wife and I used to work for Boys Town over here in Nebraska, working with at-risk youth. And I've shared this story with you, obviously, and this is the time that I need to share it with the audience, because there will be a change in this podcast as well. Corey's not going anywhere. He's the boss. He's the driver of this. But my wife and I were asked to come back to Boys Town because it's difficult to find house parents, family teachers for these young men and young women. We chose to work with young men, and we have a bunch of them that live in our house now. And my wife is cooking feverishly for an army all the time. And we really enjoy it. There's a 1938 movie called Boys Town. It was Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy, and they won an Oscar, and the Oscar is actually here at Boys Town in the Hall of History Museum. But we're back doing this. And part of this is the fact that we'll have 8 kids and not a lot of time for other things. And so I've got to wrap up my time on this podcast, and there's a great gentleman, Bill, that's going to be taking over. And, I just want to thank you, Corey, for everything that you have done and educated me on, and just allowing me to be a small part of what you've created here.
I appreciate that. And I do. I appreciate you for everything you've contributed. You've coached me up. And if I go back and listen to episode 1 through 5, I'm sure I was really bad. And now
I wouldn't say bad.
Now I'm hopefully mediocre.
You were new. Now you're fantastic.
And then we're going to tie the sail to Bill and take this thing to an above average level.
That's right. Whole new. Bill's finally going to get this podcast off the ground. A lot of pressure.
Oh man, no. But seriously though, we shouldn't be sad that our conversations are over. We should be glad that they happened. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I do. I appreciate it. It's been a good journey. But yeah, we're still committed to this cause just as much as you're committed to your cause of doing good things and having that calling. And man, this reminds me of some of the greatest moments I have in working with clients, because sometimes they've retired, it's working successfully, and they come to me and they feel sheepish and they say, oh, geez, I bought a new RV and I need $100,000. Like they're thinking I'm going to be disappointed. And I look at them, I say, I am not here. My staff is not here to hoard your investment dollars. Mm-hmm. We're here to help you achieve the things, tackle the things, accomplish those things that you want to accomplish. That's success.
Yeah.
I love it when people withdraw things in a productive way. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're in theory, you're withdrawing from the podcast, we can almost say. And that's super good because you're going to something that is so important. I think it's important. but I know it's important to you and your wife, and it's certainly important to every young man, or if you branch out to young women, any of those young people that can benefit from guidance. That's awesome. Super awesome.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the support. I don't know if I shared this with you, but when we were here the first time, so we were here for almost 12 years the first time, we had 68 young men through our program. My daughter was 18 months old when we first started, and I had a 4-year-old son. My daughter is now an assistant family teacher in a girls' home. So she's working with the girls. My wife and I are back working with the boys. But yeah, it's a kind of a family thing. And it's fantastic. We love it. And Corey, we've got a 14-foot table sitting in our dining room, and you are welcome to it anytime. Have some dinner, meet the boys, and have a night you won't forget.
Absolutely, Aric. I appreciate that invitation, and I want to take you up on that.
I hope you do. Anything else that we need to cover for today's podcast?
Well, I think we're good for today, but now here's the exciting part, listeners. You get Aric one more time.
Oh,
he doesn't know this, but we're having a surprise. Aric has a deep love for music and singing. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. Yes, it's very fair.
And so I'm not going to require you to sing, but the next episode we release is going to be called Lyrical Finance.
Oh.
And so we are going to try and potentially stump each other with random music lyrics and then time to finance somehow. It's going to be awesome.
Okay. Deal. I'm all over it. I got to do some work for this next one.
And so at some point we'll even tell Bill when the show starts for him.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll be in Lyrical Finance, maybe beyond that. I don't know, but
yeah.
Bill doesn't even know what he's getting into.
Oh no. Bill has no idea. Maybe he's got a clue, but next time I think we need to incorporate him, bring him in, and put him on the spot.
Well, perfect. Well, change is good, right? There you go.
Yes. And for the listener, here's the thing. If you have any questions about Boys Town, sure, email them to Corey. But more importantly, if you have questions about Bill, email those in too. So we'll cover some of those in the next podcast. You can get your questions answered before Bill even gets on the show. And if we don't know, we'll have him answer them live on air.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong
with that? All right, Corey, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I do look forward to the next podcast, even though that will be the farewell one. It's just been an honor and a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Aric.
You bet. And of course, our last thank you goes to the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Win Podcast with Corey Heimensen. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Corey comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually does help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Heimensen Wealth Advisors, this is Aric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Win Podcast. What's important now? The show that helps you achieve your financial dreams. To ask questions about topics covered during the show or get a copy of Stop Doing Dumb Things with Your Money by Corey Heimensen, visit www.heimensenwealth.com or give us a call at 712-472-3867. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc. Heimensen Wealth Advisors and Securities America are separate entities.